Chapter 23, Dharma Nectar. It was the Buddha's custom to rise early and to sit in meditation, and then do walking meditation among the forest trees. One morning, while walking, he saw a handsome, elegantly dressed man in his late 20s, half hidden in the morning mist. The Buddha sat on a large rock, and when the man approached quite close to the rock, still unaware of the Buddha, he mumbled, "Disgusting, repulsive." The Buddha stood up. "There is nothing disgusting. There is nothing repulsive." The man stopped in his tracks. The Buddha's voice was clear and soothing, and the man looked up to see the Buddha sitting there, relaxed and serene. The young man removed his sandals and bowed deeply before the Buddha. Then he sat on a nearby rock. The Buddha asked, "What is so disgusting? What is so repulsive?" The young man introduced himself as Yasa, the son of one of the wealthiest and most reputable merchants in Varanasi. Yasa had always enjoyed a life of splendor and ease. His parents catered to his every whim, provided him with every kind of pleasure, including a handsome manor, jewels, money, wine, courtesans, banquets, and parties. But Yasa, a sensitive and thoughtful young man, had begun to feel suffocated by this life of pleasure and could no longer find any contentment in it. He was like a person locked in a room without windows. He longed for some fresh air, for a simple, wholesome life. The night before, Yasa and some friends had gathered to feast, drink, play music, and be entertained by lovely young courtesans. In the middle of the night, Yasa woke up and looked at his friends and the young women sprawled out asleep. At that moment, he knew he could not continue to live that way. He threw a cloak over his body, slipped on a pair of sandals, and walked out the front gate, not even knowing where he would go. He had wandered aimlessly all night until by chance he found himself in the deer park of Isipatana. And now, as the sun rose, he sat facing the Buddha. The Buddha counseled him, "Yasa, this life is filled with suffering, but it is also filled with many wonders. To drown in sensual pleasures is bad for the health of both body and mind. If you live simply and wholesomely, not ruled by desires, it is possible to experience the many wonders of life. Yasa, look around you. Can you see the trees standing in the morning mists? Are they not beautiful? The moon, the stars, the rivers, the mountains, the sunlight, the songs of birds and the sounds of bubbling springs are all manifestations of a universe which can provide us with endless happiness. The happiness we receive from these things nourishes mind and body. Close your eyes and breathe in and out a few times. Now open them, and what do you see? Trees, mist, sky, rays of sunlight. Your own two eyes are wonders. Because you have been out of touch with wonders like these, you have come to despise your mind and body. Some people despise their own minds and bodies so much that they want to commit suicide. They see only the suffering in life, but suffering is not the true nature of the universe. Suffering is the result of the way we live and of our erroneous understanding of life. The Buddha's words touched Yasa like fresh drops of cool dew to soothe his parched heart. Overcome with happiness, he prostrated before the Buddha and asked to become a disciple. The Buddha helped him up and said, "A monk lives a simple and humble life. He has no money. He sleeps in a grass hut or beneath the trees. He eats only what he receives from begging, and he eats only one meal a day. Can you live such a life?" "Yes, Master, I would be happy to live such a life." The Buddha continued, "A monk devotes his mind and body to realize liberation in order to help himself and all others. He concentrates his efforts to help relieve suffering. Do you vow to follow such a path?" "Yes, Master, I vow to follow such a path." "Then I accept you as my disciple." A disciple in my community is known as a bhikkhu, a beggar. Every day you will go to beg for your food in order to nourish yourself, to practice humility, and to be in touch with others in order to show them the way. Just then, the Buddha's 5 friends and first disciples appeared. Yasa stood up and respectfully greeted each one. The Buddha introduced them to Yasa and then turned to Kondana. "Kondana, Yasa wishes to become a bhikkhu. I have accepted him. Please show him how to wear a robe, carry a begging bowl, observe his breath, and do sitting and walking meditation." Yasa bowed to the Buddha and then followed Kondana, who led him to his hut, where he shaved Yasa's hair and gave him instruction according to the Buddha's wishes. Kondana happened to have an extra robe and bowl, which had been offered to him but which he had never used. He gave these to Yasa. That afternoon, Yasa's father came looking for him. All morning long, the household had frantically been seeking Yasa at his father's orders. One servant followed Yasa's footprints to the deer park, and there he found Yasa's golden sandals abandoned by a large rock. After making inquiries, he learned that his young master was staying there with some monks. He returned in haste to inform Yasa's father. When Yasa's father arrived, he found the Buddha sitting serenely on a rock. He joined his palms and respectfully asked, "Revered monk, have you seen my son Yasa?" The Buddha motioned to a nearby rock and invited Yasa's father to be seated. He said, "Yasa is in the hut and will be out shortly." Yasa's father listened as the Buddha recounted all that had taken place that morning. The Buddha helped him understand Yasa's inner thoughts and aspirations. Yasa is a bright and sensitive young man. He has found the path of liberation for his heart. He now has faith, peace, and joy. Please be happy for him, the Buddha said. The Buddha also told Yasa's father how it was possible to live in a way that could reduce suffering and anxiety and create peace and joy for oneself and all those around one. The merchant felt lighter with each word the Buddha spoke. He stood up and joined his palms together to ask to be accepted as a lay disciple. The Buddha was silent for a moment, and then he spoke. "My disciples strive to live simply with awareness, avoid killing, shun adultery, speak truthfully, and avoid alcohol and stimulants which cloud the mind. Sir, if you feel you can follow such a path, I will accept you as a lay disciple." Yasa's father knelt before the Buddha and joined his palms. "Allow me to take refuge in your teaching. Please show me the way in this life. I vow to remain faithful to your teaching all my days." The Buddha helped the merchant back to his feet. Yasa joined them. He was clad in a bhikkhu's robe and his head was shaven. The new bhikkhu smiled with a rare joy. He joined his palms to make a lotus bud and then bowed to his father. Yasa looked radiant. His father had never seen him so happy. Yasa's father bowed to his son and said, "Your mother is at home, and she is very worried about you." Yasa answered, "I will visit her to relieve her worries. I have taken vows to follow the Buddha and to live a life of service to all beings." Yasa's father turned to the Buddha. "Please, Master, allow me to invite you and your bhikkhus to have a meal at my house tomorrow. We would be deeply honored if you would come and instruct us on the path of awakening." The Buddha turned and looked at Yasa. The new bhikkhu's eyes sparkled. Then the Buddha nodded his acceptance. The following day, the Buddha and his 6 bhikkhus ate at the home of Yasa's parents. Yasa's mother wept, so overcome was she to see her son both safe and happy. The Buddha and his bhikkhus were invited to sit on cushioned chairs. Yasa's mother served them herself. As the bhikkhus ate in silence, no one spoke, no one not even the household servants. When the meal was finished and the begging bowls had been washed, Yasa's parents bowed to the Buddha and then sat on low stools placed before him. The Buddha taught them the 5 precepts which formed the foundation of practice for lay disciples. The first precept is do not kill. All living beings fear death. If we truly follow the path of understanding and love, we will observe this precept. Not only should we protect the lives of humans, we should protect the lives of animals as well. Observing this precept nourishes compassion and wisdom. The second precept is do not steal. We do not have the right to steal the properties of others, nor to gain wealth by taking advantage of the labour of others. We must find ways to help others support themselves. The third precept is do not engage in sexual misconduct. Do not violate the rights and commitments of others. Always remain faithful to your spouse. The fourth precept is do not say untruthful things. Do not utter words that distort the truth or cause discord and hatred. Do not spread news that you do not know to be certain. The fifth precept is do not use alcohol or any other stimulants. If you live by the spirit of the 5 precepts, you will avoid suffering and discord for yourself, your family, and your friends. You will find your happiness in life multiplied many times over. As Yasa's mother listened to the Buddha, she felt as though a gate of happiness had just opened in her heart. She was happy to know that her husband had already been accepted as a lay disciple by the Buddha. She knelt before the Buddha and joined her palms. She too was accepted as a lay disciple. The Buddha and his 6 bhikkhus returned to Isipatana. Chapter 24. Taking Refuge. News of Yasa becoming a bhikkhu spread quickly among his friends. His closest companions, Vimala, Subahu, Gunaji, and Gavampati, decided to visit him at Isipatana. On the way there, Subahu said, "If Yasa has decided to become a monk, his master must really be extraordinary, and the path he teaches most lofty. Yasa is very discriminating." Vimala retorted, "Don't be so certain. Perhaps he became a monk on a whim, and it won't last long. After 6 months or a year, he may very well abandon such a life." Gavampati disagreed. You're not taking Yasa seriously enough. I've always found him to be quite serious, and I'm sure he wouldn't do anything like this without sincerely intending it. When they found Yasa at the deer park, he introduced them to the Buddha. Teacher, these 4 friends of mine are all fine persons. Please have compassion and open their eyes to the path of liberation. The Buddha sat down to talk with the 4 young men. At first Vimala was the most skeptical, but the more he heard, the more impressed he became. Finally, he suggested to the other 3 that they all ask the Buddha to accept them as bhikkhus. The 4 young men knelt before the Buddha. Recognizing their sincerity, the Buddha accepted them on the spot. He asked Kondana to give them basic instruction. Yasa had several hundred other friends who soon heard how Yasa and his 4 closest companions had all become bhikkhus. 120 of these young men, all in their 20s, met outside Yasa's home and decided to visit Isipatana that very morning. Yasa was informed of their arrival and he came out to greet them. He spoke about his decision to become a bhikkhu, and then he led them to have an audience with the Buddha. Surrounded by the young men, the Buddha spoke about the path which can end suffering and lead to peace and joy. He told them about his own search and how he had vowed to find the way while he was still a young man. The 120 young men listened as if entranced. 50 of them requested to become bhikkhus at once. Many of the other 70 also wanted to become bhikkhus, but could not abandon their responsibilities as sons, husbands, and fathers. Yasa asked the Buddha to accept his 50 friends, and the Buddha agreed. Overjoyed, Yasa said, "With your permission, tomorrow I will pass by my parents' home when I am out begging. I can ask them if they might like to offer robes and bowls for these new bhikkhus." The Buddha now had 60 bhikkhus living with him at the deer park. He remained there for an additional 3 months in order to guide the community. During that time, several hundred men and women were accepted by the Buddha as lay disciples. The Buddha taught the bhikkhus how to practice observing their body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. He taught them about the interdependent nature of all things and explained that meditating on interdependence was very important. He explained that all things depend on each other for their arising, development, and decline. Without dependent co-arising, nothing could exist. Within one thing existed all other things. The meditation on dependent co-arising, he said, is a gate which leads to liberation from birth and death. It has the power to break through fixed and narrow views, such as the belief that the universe has been created either by some god or from some element such as earth, water, fire, or air. The Buddha understood his responsibility as a teacher. He cared for and guided the 60 bhikkhus like a loving elder brother. He also shared a lot of responsibility with his first 5 disciples. Kondana guided 20 young men, while Badaya, Bappa, Mahanama, and Asaji each helped guide 10 young men. All the bhikkhus made great progress along the path. When the Buddha saw this, he called the community together and said, "Bhikkhus, please listen. We are totally free, not bound by anything. You understand the path now. Proceed with confidence and you will make great strides. You can leave Isipatana whenever you like. Walk as free persons and share the way of awakening with others. Please sow the seeds of liberation and enlightenment to bring peace and joy to others. Teach the path of liberation, which is beautiful from beginning to end, in form and in content. Countless others will benefit from your work of spreading the Dharma. As for me, I will leave soon. I plan to head east. I want to visit the Bodhi tree and the children of Uruvela village. Afterwards, I will go to visit a special friend in Rajgaha. After listening to the Buddha's words, a large number of bhikkhus, clad in brick-coloured robes and carrying just their begging bowls, left to go spread the teaching. Only 20 bhikkhus remained in Isipatana. Before long, many people in the kingdoms of Kasi and Magadha heard about the Buddha and his disciples. They knew that a prince of the Sakya clan had attained liberation and was teaching his path in Isipatana, near the city of Varanasi. Many monks who had not yet attained the fruit of liberation felt greatly encouraged, and they came from all directions to Isipatana. After hearing the Buddha speak, most took vows to become bhikkhus. The bhikkhus who had left Isipatana to spread the teaching brought back many more young men who also wished to become monks. The number of disciples soon swelled. One day, the Buddha gathered the Sangha in the deer park and said, "Bhikkhus, it is no longer necessary for me personally to ordain every new bhikkhu, or for everyone who wishes to be ordained to come to Isipatana. Those who wish to receive ordination should be able to do so in their own villages, in the presence of their families and friends. And like you, I too would like to be free to remain here and to travel from here. Henceforth, when you meet a sincere and aspiring new bhikkhu, you may ordain him wherever you may be." Kondana stood up and joined his palms. "Master, please show us the way to organize a ceremony of ordination. Then we can do it by ourselves in the future." The Buddha answered, "Please do as I have done in the past." Asaji stood up and said, "Master, your presence is so formidable, you do not need to perform a formal ceremony. But for the rest of us, a formal procedure is needed. Brother Kondana, perhaps you can suggest a form. The Buddha is here with us and he can add to your suggestions." Kondana was silent for a moment, then he spoke. "Respected Buddha, I think the first step should be to have the aspiring bhikkhu allow his hair and beard to be shaved. Then he can be instructed in the manner of wearing the robe. After he has put on his robe, he can expose his right shoulder in the customary manner and kneel before the monk giving the ordination. It is proper to kneel, as the monk giving the ordination is serving as a representative of the Buddha. The one being ordained can hold his palms together like a lotus bud and recite 3 times, "I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness." After repeating these refuges, he will be considered a bhikkhu in the community of the Buddha. But this is only my suggestion. Please, teacher, correct it. The Buddha answered, "It is most fine, Brother Kondana. Reciting the 3 refuges 3 times while kneeling before an already ordained bhikkhu shall be sufficient to become an ordained bhikkhu." The community was happy with this decision. A few days later, The Buddha put on his robe, lifted his bowl, and left Isipatana on his own. It was an especially beautiful morning. He headed towards the Ganga River to return to Magadha. And dear friends, this is where we have a pause in our story. Take good care and go gently. Good night.